Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today we're unearthing a chapter of American history that's both heartbreaking and strangely hopeful. The Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
Imagine a sky raining dirt, not water, turning the American dream into a desperate fight for survival. That's the reality we'll explore, guided by excerpts from Timothy Egan's National Book Award-winning The Worst Hard Time. Through his vivid storytelling, we'll uncover how human actions intertwined with nature's fury brewed this perfect storm. And just as importantly, we'll examine how people clung to hope amidst the landscape turned to dust.
It's a story that resonates even today.
Yeah.
Egan doesn't just recount events. He brings us face to face with individuals navigating this catastrophe. He masterfully connects their personal stories to the wider ecological and historical context, creating a powerful tapestry of resilience and the consequences of our relationship with the land.
Right from the start, Egan throws us into the early 20th century. It was a time when the Great Plains, fueled by government incentives and persuasive marketing, were seen as a land of opportunity. Millions of acres of native grasslands were transformed into wheat fields, a transformation so drastic that even the world's largest fenced ranch, the XIT in Texas, was carved up and sold to homesteaders.
It's almost like a gold rush, but with wheat instead of gold. What's fascinating is how Egan unveils the layered complexities behind this mass migration. He reveals how town developers like those in Boise City, Oklahoma, capitalized on this fervor, luring settlers with embellished promises of prosperity and a permanently changed climate. When folks arrived, they found a harsh reality far from the lush landscapes depicted in brochures.
That really underscores how the seeds of the Dust Bowl were sown long before the first dust storms hit. It makes you think about the potential consequences when ambition overrides careful consideration of the environment. Egan introduces us to a cast of characters whose lives become intertwined with this ecological drama. We meet Bam White, a cowboy struggling to adapt as the cattle industry declines. Forced into sharecropping, his story echoes the trials and hopes of many settlers.
Bam's journey is especially poignant. He represents that rugged, independent spirit of the West, deeply tied to the land, yet forced to watch it crumble before his eyes. Imagine the heartache of witnessing a place you love turning against you.
Egan also brings us the perspective of Doc Dawson, a physician in Dalhart, Texas. Witnessing the boom and bust cycles of the plains firsthand, Doc embodies resilience, losing his savings in a bank collapse, then pivoting to farming. He even opens his home to feed the hungry during the worst of the Depression.
Doc's actions highlight a crucial aspect of the Dust Bowl, the spirit of community that emerged in the face of hardship. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, compassion and a shared sense of responsibility can make all the difference.
And then there's Hazel Lucas Shaw, a young teacher trying to build a life in dust-choked Boise City. Her story takes a heartbreaking turn when she loses her infant daughter to dust pneumonia, a harsh reality of the times. Imagine losing a child to the very air you breathe. It's a stark reminder of the deeply personal tragedies that unfolded during this era.
Hazel's story isn't an isolated incident. Egan also introduces us to Ike Osteen, a teenager living in a dugout in Colorado. He embodies the struggles of a generation forced to mature quickly amidst deprivation. We also meet the Ehrlich family, German-Russian immigrants who, fleeing hardship in their homeland, found themselves facing new challenges on the plains. Their story highlights how the Dust Bowl impacted people from diverse backgrounds, each carrying their own burdens and hopes.
It's important to remember that all of this unfolded against the backdrop of the Great Depression. That economic collapse magnified the hardships faced by those already battling drought and dust storms. Banks failed, foreclosures surged, and desperate measures like penny auctions, where farmers colluded to buy back their foreclosed land for pennies, became commonplace.
Imagine the desperation of a community driven to such extremes. These penny auctions were a form of protest and a last-ditch effort to hold on to their livelihoods. Egan really captures that mix of despair and defiance that characterized this period. And then came the dust storms. Egan doesn't hold back in his descriptions. He paints a visceral picture of how these storms began as mere nuisances, like hazy curtains on the horizon, but escalated into black blizzards that devoured the daylight.
It must have felt apocalyptic. Egan recounts stories of chickens roosting in midday, folks using ropes to guide themselves through the blinding dust and this pervasive grit that infiltrated everything: food, water, even their lungs.
The dust was so fine it could seep through cracks in doors and windows, blanketing homes in a thick layer of grime. Imagine needing a shovel to clear the dust from your house every morning.
One survivor described it as feeling like you were caught in a whirlpool, unable to see your hand in front of your face. It's almost impossible to fathom.
The impact stretched far beyond the Great Plains. In May 1934, a massive dust storm carried the topsoil of the heartland across the nation, dumping 12 million tons of dirt on Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C. Even ships hundreds of miles off the Atlantic coast were swallowed by this dust-filled haze.
It really underscores how the Dust Bowl became a national crisis, forcing those outside the affected region to confront the consequences of what was happening on the plains.
And then came Black Sunday, April 14th, 1935. Egan builds a palpable sense of dread leading up to this day. He describes a monster of dust and wind carrying twice the volume of dirt excavated for the Panama Canal. To put that in perspective, the canal took 7 years to dig, while this storm wreaked havoc in a single afternoon.
That's an incredible embarrassment. It truly highlights the scale and intensity of this storm.
Egan recounts Black Sunday through the eyes of those who lived it. It's chilling to read their accounts of the storm's ferocity, the terrifying darkness and the disorientation. People were caught off guard, blinded by the dust, struggling to breathe, fearing for their lives. Children cried, animals panicked, and the air itself crackled with static electricity.
It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
The aftermath was just as devastating. Homes were buried, crops were decimated, and the air remained thick with dust for weeks. People suffered from dust pneumonia, a debilitating respiratory illness caused by inhaling the fine particles. It hit children and the elderly especially hard.
There's a gut-wrenching story about a young girl named Jean Clark. She was playing outside when Black Sunday hit and nearly died from dust pneumonia. Ironically, her mother had moved to the plains seeking fresh air for her daughter, only to have the air itself become lethal.
Black Sunday became a turning point. A grim symbol of the crisis, capturing national attention and finally prompting widespread calls for action. It forced people to understand that the Dust Bowl wasn't an act of God. It was a man-made catastrophe, a consequence of unsustainable farming practices.
That's when we're introduced to Hugh Hammond Bennett, the father of soil conservation. Egan paints him as a fascinating figure, a scientist, an advocate, and a bit of a showman. Bennett traveled throughout the Dust Bowl, witnessing the devastation firsthand. He was convinced that human actions were the primary culprit.
Bennett argued that overgrazing, monoculture farming, and plowing up marginal lands had stripped the soil of its natural defenses, leaving it vulnerable to erosion. He became a tireless voice for soil conservation, urging the government to intervene and help farmers adopt better practices.
But he faced an uphill battle. Many dismissed the Dust Bowl as just a natural disaster, and others saw government intervention as a threat to individual liberty.
Even powerful politicians like Senator Huey Long ridiculed Bennett's ideas. But Bennett persevered, and his efforts ultimately led to the creation of the Soil Conservation Service, a federal agency dedicated to promoting soil health.
It's inspiring to see how one person's dedication can spark such meaningful change.
The Soil Conservation Service was instrumental in implementing conservation measures that helped mitigate the Dust Bowl and prevent future disasters. They introduced techniques like contour plowing, which follows the natural curves of the land to slow water runoff and reduce erosion. They also encouraged terracing, a method of creating level platforms on sloped land to prevent soil from washing away.
These techniques must have seemed revolutionary at the time, challenging the established ways of farming.
They were, and they weren't universally embraced. But the sheer scale of the crisis demanded new approaches. Egan also details the New Deal programs implemented to tackle the Dust Bowl, highlighting both their successes and their limitations.
The government began purchasing failing farms, offering a lifeline to some families. The Civilian Conservation Corps, through projects like tree planting and building terraces, also play a crucial role in stabilizing the soil.
However, there were unforeseen consequences as well. For example, paying farmers to reduce production while people were starving created an unsettling paradox. It highlights the complexities of responding to such a widespread crisis.
It seems there's always a tension between finding immediate solutions and considering the long-term implications.
Absolutely. Egan doesn't shy away from the political controversies surrounding the New Deal, showing how it both unified and divided the nation. Some viewed it as essential intervention, a lifeline for struggling farmers and communities. Others saw it as government overreach.
It's a reminder that even in times of crisis, there are differing viewpoints on the role of government.
Egan reminds us that amidst the hardship and despair, remarkable resilience and compassion flourished. He describes acts of kindness, neighbors helping neighbors, and a spirit of community that refused to be broken.
He highlights Doc Dawson's efforts to feed the hungry and Hazel Shaw's determination to rebuild her life after the tragic loss of her daughter. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to find strength and hope in the darkest of times.
Egan also delves into the darker side of the Dust Bowl, the despair, the desperation, and the social tensions that inevitably arise during such hardship. He talks about the rise of vigilantism as farmers took matters into their own hands to prevent foreclosures.
It's a stark reminder that even in the face of shared hardship, there can be discord and a struggle for survival.
Egan doesn't shy away from these complexities. He portrays a nuanced picture of life during the Dust Bowl, showing how the crisis exposed both the best and worst of human nature.
Ultimately, the Dust Bowl led to a mass exodus from the plains, with families packing up what little they had left and heading west in search of a better life. Egan captures the heartbreak of leaving behind everything familiar, the uncertainty of the unknown, and the desperate hope for a fresh start.
He shares the poignant story of Bam White, whose health was irrevocably damaged by the dust storms. Bam died in 1938, a victim of the Dust Bowl's lingering legacy. It's a stark reminder of the human cost of this ecological disaster.
Egan also includes the diary entries of Don Hartwell, a Nebraska farmer who chose to stay. His words paint a picture of dwindling hope and the struggle to hold on to a way of life that was slipping away.
The poignant words of those who stayed and those who left offer a powerful testament to the Dust Bowl's enduring impact on the American psyche. It forced a reassessment of our relationship with the land and the consequences of our actions.
Egan weaves in the powerful photography of Arthur Rothstein, who captured the human face of the Dust Bowl for the Farm Security Administration.
Rothstein's photographs are iconic. They capture the despair in the eyes of Dust Bowl refugees, the weariness etched on their faces, and the quiet dignity they maintained in the face of unimaginable hardship.
His work helped to galvanize public support and bring the crisis into the national consciousness.
Egan masterfully connects these individual stories to the larger social and ecological consequences of the Dust Bowl. This event wasn't just a regional disaster, it had ripple effects that shaped the nation's future.
It led to lasting changes in agricultural practices, the development of soil conservation programs, and a greater awareness of the delicate balance between human activity and the natural world.
And just as importantly, it inspired literature, music, and art that continue to resonate today. Think of John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath or Woody Guthrie's Dust Bowl ballads.
The Dust Bowl has become a powerful symbol of both the fragility of the American dream and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit. It's a story that continues to resonate, reminding us of the importance of environmental stewardship and the enduring power of hope in the face of adversity. It's incredible to think about how even amidst such devastation, communities found ways to cope and connect. Egan talks about how people sought solace and connection in gatherings, dances, and even rabbit drives.
Yeah. These communal activities were more than just distractions. They were lifelines, offering a sense of normalcy and shared experience in a world turned upside down. It speaks to the human need for connection, especially during times of hardship.
It seems counterintuitive, but maybe laughter and shared experiences were the most potent forms of resistance against the despair of the Dust Bowl. Egan doesn't just focus on the social and environmental impacts. He delves into the lasting legacy, the changes that emerged from this period of immense hardship.
One of the most significant outcomes was a transformed understanding of soil conservation. Hugh Hemmond Bennett's tireless advocacy led to the creation of the Soil Conservation Service, a federal agency that continues to play a crucial role in promoting soil health even today.
It's a testament to how a crisis can spark innovation and lead to lasting positive change. What strikes me is how the Dust Bowl wasn't just an environmental disaster. It was a social, economic, and political upheaval with ripple effects far beyond the Great Plains.
Absolutely. The Dust Bowl spurred mass migrations, shaping the demographics of the entire country. It fueled the rise of government intervention in agriculture and inspired new forms of art and literature.
It's a powerful reminder that everything is interconnected, that our actions have far-reaching consequences. What can we as individuals living in a very different time learn from this historical event?
Well, the Dust Bowl serves as a stark warning about the consequences of disrespecting the limits of the natural world. We can't exploit resources without consequence, and we must adopt more sustainable practices.
Right. We also need to be adaptable and prepared for the unexpected. The Dust Bowl showed us that nature can be unpredictable and that resilience is key to navigating unforeseen challenges.
And perhaps the most crucial lesson is the power of collective action. Overcoming a crisis of this magnitude required a national response with individuals, communities, and the government working together.
It underscores the fact that we're all in this together. We need that same spirit of collaboration and innovation today to address contemporary challenges, whether it's climate change, social inequality, or any other issue that threatens our collective well-being.
Egan's The Worst Hard Time is more than just a history book. It's a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to shape a better future one, informed by the lessons of the past.
If you're ready to delve into this powerful and deeply moving story, we encourage you to pick up a copy of The Worst Hard Time. You can find a purchase link in the show notes. And if you're eager to explore more thought-provoking deep dives, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through a chapter of American history that continues to resonate today.
Until next time, stay curious.